Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 prop and betting stream for the 3M Open. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure with a look at the stat averages from today, also weather for Friday. We'll go through the Underdog and Prize Picks boards, also matchups on the sports books to get you guys ready to crush your Friday. But first off, hopefully your Thursday is treating you nicely. It was a good one for our prop exposure, both from the live stream and for all of my other exposure too. The course played a lot easier, just like we thought it would, and it ended up reaping some rewards. So we got Christian down there, McGill as well. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic evening. First thing I need you guys to do, whether you're already in the live chat or a part of the replay crew, is go ahead and smash that like button for me, and any sort of bets that you guys want me to deep dive at any point, don't be shy at all to go ahead and let me know in the chat. But first things first, let's go through the stat averages from today. And as expected, it did play easier than last year, which was because of the lift clean of place and also the calm conditions. So minus 2.1 for the scoring average, which at a par 71 setup is a 68.9. Birdie average went up to 4.46 per round. Worth noting that even with the wild change in the scoring average, that the biggest change actually came with your bogey average rather than the birdie average. Bogey average was 2.08 per round, and then the fairways hit was 9.13, and your green average was 13.48 per round, which was all pretty much exactly what we called for in yesterday's live stream, which was what made it so easy to find that kind of value. But round number 2 could be a little bit different. Before we talk about that curveball, let's go through the weather that we're expecting for round 2, which looks almost exactly the same as the first day. So you may wonder what that curveball is going to be, but from the wind perspective, it looks like an almost carbon copy of Thursday, sub 5 to 6 miles an hour for pretty much the entire round. The wind gusts don't get above 10 miles an hour either. So the scoring today that was excellent across the board is very likely going to be the same case tomorrow. However, with the change potentially of lift clean in place, well, today it worked to our advantage. There's a chance that they don't go with lift clean in place tomorrow. Now, a lot of that comes down to how soft the golf course is in the morning. The tour staff are going to walk the premises, get an idea for the possibility of mud balls. And if they give it the all clear, which I think there's a chance that they do, this could have a drastic impact on the scoring average. In fact, it could go from a -2 scoring average to maybe -1 or worse. Sometimes it's an entire stroke difference from round to round, just having lift clean in place change. So don't be surprised if that happens tomorrow morning. I would say that it's probably a 50-50 prospect right now on whether they go with the lift clean in place or if they decide to play it down. If they do, though, there could be a lot of fade value that we have on these boards, because when you take a look at the pricing on sites like Draftkings, FanDuel, etc., they are certainly accounting for that lift clean in place. So that's maybe the X factor that could really flip the slate on its head. And then also these pin locations, which we're about to go through hole by hole, also look a hair tougher than what we had for round number 1. So I'm going to be a little light on my exposure, at least before 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Once we get the idea whether it is going to be lift clean in place or not, then I'm going to feel a lot more confident in one direction or the other and entering a lot of props. But until then, there are a few pieces of value that we're going to pick off here in the live stream. I just think that best judgment, prudence in this kind of a spot would be to not unload the clip before we get that kind of an information, because it could be an entire stroke difference on these boards. And if my hunch is correct, and if I had to guess on that 50-50 coin flip, whether it was going to be lift clean in place or not, I would say that they probably don't go with it if you maybe choose between the two, just because I saw fairways running out today, especially in the afternoon wave. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of players that were dealing with mud, even on approach shots into the green, which has me thinking that there's a chance that they play the ball down. So that'll impact our strategy a little bit later on. But before we go through the Underdog and Prize Picks boards, a few props that already caught my eye. Let's go through these pin locations that they'll be facing in round number 2. So let's see. We got Tanner down there as well, and you're asking about some live stuff. So yeah, we'll go through the live golf stuff at the end, Tanner. So I'm going to hold off on those questions until we go through live, which will be after we go through Underdog and Prize Picks on the pick'em side. So just hang around for a little bit. I have taken a look at those boards, and I have a take for conditions in round 1. But we're going to stick with the PGA side first, and pin number 1 is on the left side of the screen. So it's about where my cursor is now. I would say slightly more difficult than today. It's protected by these bunkers towards the front left side, and it's short-sided to get close to it. But because it's a 400-yard par 4 and you're hitting a wedge in, you're still going to see a lot of birdies at hole number 1. So maybe a slightly higher bogey average, as it's not as wide open as what it was today, but still going to be one of the top 10 easiest holes on property. Like, it's not going to be one of the top 5 or 6 hardest by any means. Hole 2, though, is probably going to be your hardest hole. So even though hole 1 is a little bit of a handshake, not only is this a hole with water in play on the tee shot and on the second shot, but the second shot is as long as it possibly gets into the screen, and also brings the water in play to the right side. So it's in this little back right corner, going to be an extremely difficult hole. Next up, we have 3, which is in the front side of the screen. I would say it's the easiest pin on this hole, which you would expect with this long par 5. If you miss the fairway at 3, it gets very difficult to get there in 2. And a lot of players that missed the fairway, like Svensson did today, were only able to get it towards the front portion of that green, which is why it has me thinking it might be a little bit easier, because it'll be a shorter chip rather than towards the back right corner. So there are going to be a few easier pins like we have here at 3, but for the most part, they look a little bit trickier, as you'll see across the board. Next up, we have 4, which is a par 3. It's a shorter par 3, but it's going to play longer for tomorrow. So rather than 160 towards this front middle quadrant, it's about 175, 180 towards this back right corner. So expect that one to also be a little bit harder. Not only is it a longer shot, but you bring in those back bunkers and also this slope towards the middle end of that green complex. Next up, we have 5, which is a middle right pin location. This is a shorter par 4. It's really not that much different than today, but those front pin locations on short par 4s are attackable for the field. So you would have to think that this one is maybe slightly harder than today. Let's go to 6 next. So 6 is a par 5. 6 is towards the front side of this green now. So I would say that this is one of the rare pins that is significantly easier than round number 1. Reason for that, of course, is that it's a long par 5. Any distance off helps on that sort of hole. And this front pin location is much easier to get up and down to. If you know all these bunkers, you can conceivably get up and down. And if you finish to the front right in this fairway, it's also the most simple straight up and down there as well. Next up, we have 7, which is a front left pin location. This is a shorter par 4, and this one's also looks easier, I would say, than today, but it's a smaller portion of the green. So this back portion you can see is a larger square footage than this front left portion. So though it's on the low area, it's still a wedge shot in no matter where you're hitting it, and you're not using that slope towards the right to hit it close. Like if you hit it on that slope towards the right, it's a risky proposition. You ever so slightly pull it and you're in that bunker towards the left, and you also have to aim too far right to really use that slope to your advantage, to where I actually think that the pin is maybe potentially harder than what you had for today, because you don't have as much room to work with left to right. Next up, we have 8, so which is a par 3, and that is a front right pin location. I would say it's about the same as today. It probably looks easier because it's less protected by this bunker, and there could be some truth to that. Like that's part of the difference between these two pin locations. But towards the right side, it's an awkward angle because your tee shot now, rather than being kind of straight up over these bunkers, now you have to take on all 3 of these bunkers as you're coming in diagonally across of it. So I would say it's about the same as today, not really harder or easier there though. Next up, we have 9. I would say this is a harder pin than today. Though we don't have the brutal back right pin location, that's what they're going to use on Sunday, about where my cursor is now. The pin towards this middle left is on top of a shelf. You've got the slope towards the right, which was in play for today, and some slope to the left, which looks helpful. But if you miss towards the left away from that water, it's a very difficult up and down there. So 9's probably the second most difficult pin location that you get at that hole. Next up, we have 10, which is a middle right pin. It's I would say about the same as today. Rather than being tucked over the bunker, you do have this false front over the back, or false back, I should say, at hole number 10, which makes getting up and down pretty difficult with that short-sided chip. Next up, we have 11, which is a back left pin location. I would say it's about the same as today. It's the same length, the sloping has the same kind of effect as what it did for round 1. So not a massive change there. 12 is in the back right corner. It's a slightly longer shot. It's about where my cursor is now. So actually not that far from where it was today. And let me just confirm that. Yeah, towards the back, like about where my cursor is now, I would say little to no change scoring average wise, at least based on the pin location. Next up, we have 13. 13 is a front left pin location. It looks easier than today, and it probably is because it's a smaller portion over here. So kind of like you had at that last hole where it was down in that bottom left corner and it was at the smaller portion. It's giving and taking, right, when you have that scenario, because you had to be more precise to get it in close there. But the slope is going to receive the shot. It's going to be a lot more receptive towards that portion of the green. It's just that if you miss it, then you've got to tricky up and down out of either this front right bunker or this back left bunker. Let's go to 14. So 14 is a short, really tricky par 4, though. And this one, you have the trouble in the left side off the tee. Of course, that water that you have to avoid. But this back left pin brings it into play for the second shot as well. So it's not like it wasn't in play today. You had people that made that mistake in the water, but you're going to see even more people making that mistake to the back left corner. Next up, we have 15, which is a middle left pin location. I would say it's about the same as today, maybe slightly easier, but I'll use the word slightly because it is closer towards that bunker now, which is pretty short-sighted if you end up getting into there. Let's go to 16. So 16 is on the right side. I would say it's easier than today, and ever so slightly, though. It's not really that big a difference. Reason why I'd say it's easier is that it's at a bigger pocket of the green. This little pocket here with the sloping that you can see is about a third of the size of the green. The pocket towards the right side, right on the right side of this hump, is about 2/3 of the green. So you always want to be going towards the broad side of the green in an ideal scenario. Let's go to 17. So 17 is closer towards the water. So this is definitely a harder pin than today. It's about where my cursor is now. It brings the water into play, and you can't really take the straight shot at it like a lot of players were able to do in round 1. And then finally, 18, the finishing par 5. It's about the same difficulty as round 1. It is maybe a slightly longer shot because it's in the back right corner, but it was in the back left today. So you're only talking about a few yard difference. And it was up on the shelf today. You do have some sloping towards the middle of this green, which kind of makes it tough in that back right corner, especially the 2-putt if you end up like up here. But the slope today didn't make it any easier either, right? You had all this sloping about where my cursor is now. So the pin locations, like I said, maybe a hair harder than round number 1. But the big thing that we're really going to be keeping an eye on, guys, is of course going to be that lift clean in place. So if you're following the PGA Tour comms on Twitter, if not, I would highly recommend it. By the way, that is the Twitter handle that you can see towards the right side. That's where they're going to be posting the preferred lies announcement tomorrow morning. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. And of course, guys, on my Patreon page of my exposure, I'll be updating on that as soon as we get the information as well. But in terms of my exposure, there are a few props I've already entered and a few props on Prize Picks. We just got the PGA board before we got on here that I was already eyeing over there as well. So we're going to go through a few pieces of exposure that I've already entered. Any sort of bets that you guys want me to deep dive, feel free to let me know. But yeah, next 10 minutes or so, we're going to go through some examples of the exposure that I'm getting to. Anything on top of that I enter will be posted for my Patreon members. So make sure to, if you don't already have a membership over there, make sure to sign up as fast as possible so you guys don't miss any of those slips later tonight, and a lot coming tomorrow after we have that information. But the first slip I ended up going with was an over on Matt McCarti birdies. So that was at 4.5. And then it was an over on Chad Ramey strokes. So this was actually before we got the Prize Picks board. Ramey is down at 69 strokes over there. But the beauty of taking these two together is that with the anti-correlation rules and the boosted payout on Ramey, we get a 3.46 payout, which is much better than the usual 3x that you typically see. And I think it's still okay if my course read ends up being correct. And to go back to the lift clean in place thing, lift clean in place mostly impacts strokes averages and it mostly impacts bogey averages. The big difference from these averages that we saw right here and then what we got in 2023 was a year where it was easier, but we didn't have lift clean in place for most of the time. I think it was there for one of the 4 rounds, but that year the birdie average was like 4.3 per round, so a little lower than today, but the bogey average was the big difference. It was almost a stroke difference between that year and then what we had today. Was about a 0.6 to 0.7 bogey difference compared to round number 1. So I think that if we end up having that change, again, it's a big if, still 50-50. If that ends up happening tomorrow morning, I think that the strokes board, you could have quite a bit of fade value. So let's start with the Ramey one at 69.5. if the scoring average could potentially go up an entire stroke to about 70 strokes, if it goes up a stroke, it'd be about 70, maybe like 69.9. That means that Ramey could have about an average day and go over this sort of line. And let's say that it stays the same as today, which would be assuming that lift, clean, and place happens. If that happens, maybe it gets slightly harder with the pin locations being a little bit tougher. But even if it is a -2 scoring average, you're talking about Chad Ramey, who's been terrible form-wise. So first off, today, form was good today. I mean, that, of course, was the aberration to it. But he was putter dependent. He gained 2.6 strokes on the greens. But more importantly, if we take a look at how Chad Ramey's been playing recently, he missed the cut at an alternate field event. That's about as bad as it gets. He did have the 8th place at the ISCO. So that really is one really good finish over this stretch. But look at that cut. T26 is pretty solid, but cut. T45, cut. Every once in a while, and the Zurich, by the way, is a team event, so we can kind of throw that out. Every once in a while, he'll have himself a week or two, like the Corrales or the Valero. But even then, he's not usually popping off for like these 8 shots gained performances. Like it's like a once, maybe twice a year sort of thing. You see a lot more red than you see of green on this shots gained profile. And in fact, lately, it's a lot more red than the green, especially in full field actual PGA Tour events. You know, you kind of got to take this ISCO with a grain of salt because it's in such a weak field event with a lot of DP World Tour players that are offsetting those averages to where on a field like this, you know, I have him as at best about an average player, if not a slightly below average player. So that's why with the multiplier, I was willing to take that. At Prize Picks at 69, I think it's maybe even a better play. Again, I took this before that board dropped, so I didn't even know that was going to be available. But half the point that we took this was the extra payout and the nearly 3.5x that we'd get if those two hit. So that's the Ramey side. Let's go to the Matt McCarti side next. So to go back to the averages, the birdie average will be affected a little bit if they go without lift, clean, and place. But out of all these averages that we see, I guess fairways, greens probably won't move as much either, maybe just a little bit. Birdie average, though, will be much less affected than we see with the bogey or worse. And by the way, if you don't know the reasoning for that, the reason why lift, clean, and place actually matters is when you miss greens, you hit it in the fairway, you can quite literally give yourself a perfect lie, which helps it to get up and down. With birdies and how you're teeing it up in the fairway, it might give you a slightly better chance to sweep the golf ball, but it's not nearly as impactful as what you have with that around the green shot. So that's why the birdie average, I could see it still being like 4.3, 4.4 per round, which means that Matt McCarti, who we have here for the over at 4.5 birdies. By the way, he's the number 47 birdie maker in all the PGA Tour. Would be somebody I project for at least at that average, if not over that kind of number. And while a Chad Ramey might have been a little bit putter dependent, if we go to Matt McCarti today, you'll see that it was the exact opposite. He gained off the tee, he gained on approach. He was decent around the green as well, but he lost 2 strokes on the greens. And if you know anything about McCarti, you'll know that he's typically a much better putter than that. He's not the most consistent putter that we have on the PGA Tour, but if you take a look, he's had weeks of gaining 8 strokes, weeks of gaining like 7 strokes, and oftentimes he's about a neutral in the category, and it'll be a tale of 2 halves. He'll go -2 and then +2 shots into the positive, which is what I kind of love about McCarti. I've played him a lot for props this year, and he's followed that kind of trend. And, you know, if we get that for tomorrow, you know, where he goes negative and then into the positive on the greens, that'd be massive for him. Today, he still managed to get to 5 birdies or better. Tomorrow, similar conditions, maybe without that lift, clean, in place. But those are the kind of slips that I'm taking as of right now, right? I think if you're going to take positive stance plays without the notice of lift, clean, in place, it's the safest to do it with your birdie props. And then if you want to take advantage of the value of them potentially not using lift, clean, in place, so it's a little bit risky, a little speculative, of course, right, with what I'm doing with the Chad Ramey prop. But the boosted payout, the anti-correlation, in my opinion, makes it worth the sprinkle over on the Underdog side of things. So again, Prize Picks, Underdog, all of the slips that I'm going to be taking are going to be posted on my Patreon page. If you haven't joined up, link down below in the description of the video to go out and join. $15 prop tier is what you guys want to join to catch all of those slips. And then on the Prize Picks side, I had one under on fairways we're going to talk about, and then we're going to shift to the live golf side of things. But it was an under on Kurt Kitayama fairways. So to go back to the averages, it was about 9.1 per round today. I think there's a chance it goes down a little bit because the course is going to dry out as the week goes on. And all that rain did make it easier to hit fairways in round number 1. So maybe it goes down to 9 per round. That's kind of like what I'm expecting. Maybe it's still like 9.1. It's not guaranteed, I'd say, to go down. It's just probably where I would lean if it's going to move in any direction. But Kurt Kitayama, if we go to the averages for this year, You can see I was looking up some Tom Kim stats before we got on the live stream here. But yeah, let's go through the driving accuracy. Kurt Kitayama for the year is number 141 in the category. So well below average. In fact, you would say a pretty poor accuracy player when it comes to the driving accuracy. So if the average is 9.1, I would say that that's still value at 9. But even if it drops to 9 per round, if he's a below average player, why do we have him at that 9 number? So that was a fade I was looking at. And the thing about these fairways green lines is I think that just like the birdie lines, they might not be as impacted as some of the other averages that we see. And what we're actually going to do with this, and I kind of hinted at it a second ago, is we're going to pair it up with a live golf prop, because the beauty of the live golf stuff that we have on Prize Picks is no matter what we take, it can be an over, it can be an under. Right? I'm just clicking random props here, right? 3x payout. Over would also be a 3x payout. When you take two different events, the correlation rules go away on golf, which makes our life a lot easier when trying to find a two-man slip. So they've got the Prize Pick slip, which was 2 PGA props. Underdog slip, which was 2 PGA props. Prize Pick side, we're going to make it a combination slip. So let me catch up on chat. We'll figure out what to pair up here with Kurt Kitayama, and then move on to matchups afterwards, which I've already entered 3 matchups on the Hard Rock Bet side. So a lot to talk about here in just a second. Let's see where we leave off. We got Clutch saying, he said, crazy Jake Knap pull out for Eagle to get us those 5 birdies. Yeah, it was nice. It was a super clutch moment. And I took him for a 3-ball matchup today, so it worked out there as well. He said, Homo's green line's about to be 17.5 for tomorrow. Yeah, man, 18 for 18. That was a heck of a read that we were able to take advantage of. And yeah, they're not going to put him at 17.5, but he played like an absolute legend, that's for sure. You're looking at Fishburne for the over 4.5 birdies. I don't know if he would be my favorite for that. I think there's maybe better players that you could target, but at 4.5, a guy that's an average to above average birdie maker, I'm not completely against that kind of thing. It's just maybe not something I'll enter myself. We got Joseph there. Welcome on in. You're looking at Rosner over on birdies. Let me see what his line is. So I don't know what slate you're looking at, but let me see if he's on Prize Picks first. So Rosner, no line over there. Let's see if he's on the underdog side, if that's where you're line shopping him. So yeah, I guess it's on the sports books. You have to tell me what kind of line value you're getting, because a line's only as good as the kind of juice that you have to pay. So if it's on the sports books, let me know what you have to eat there. He said, Ramey shot 800 today. What am I talking about? Yeah, man, if you're looking at today's performance and you think it has direct correlation to tomorrow, then you're the kind of fish that pays all of our wallets, right? There's got to be losing bettors to help the winning bettors get the kind of lines that are available, right? The sports books aren't just going to hand out free money. And with that kind of comment, you seem like the kind of person that is lining the sportsbook pocket. So I'm not even going to give you too much pushback, man. Go ahead and just continue to donate with that kind of mindset. Yeah, man, he shot -8 today, but it's 18 holes. That's like 1/4 of an NFL game. That's 1/4 of an NBA slate. You really think the guy gets hot in the first quarter is going to get hot for all 4 quarters? If so, you're sadly mistaken. So I'm going to send you on your way, my man. You seem like somebody that's a last 5 specialist. Yeah, those last 5 warriors, they're the biggest donators that you have in the prop space. So respectfully, get on out of here, my dude. We're way above that sort of stuff here. If you're a last 5 warrior, you're about as low IQ as you get. we're 10. We've evolved 10 stages past that at this point. So sorry if I'm being harsh, but that's as low level as it gets. You're kind of eyeing Ricky over 9.5 fairways. He said thoughts on that. 9.5 fairways is a fair line for him, I'd say. Like with the average at 9 per round, he's been an above average player this year in the category. So we already had the fairway average up, so I might as well just show you exactly where he rates. So for the year, he's number 56 in the category. So yeah, if the average is 9 per round, he should probably be at 9.5. Now, do I think he's valued towards the over? Like maybe I would lean ever so slightly in that direction, but I wouldn't have his raw projection at anything more than, let's say, like 9.6 per round. So I don't think it's drastically off. Maybe a lean towards the over. He hit a ton today. Worth noting, Antonio, I guess this adds to the value a little bit. He hit mini driver everywhere. Every tee shot, I think he hit almost every fairway. In fact, may have actually hit all 14. He was using a club that he looked very comfortable with. So I could see him kind of chaining that for back-to-back days. The stats, though, have it as a pretty good line, I would say. He said, does the Birdie Fest continue? For sure. That's just this golf course. This golf course is one of the easiest that we have on tour. Is it any value with greens? You're looking at Knap and Griot at 13.5. So believe it or not, Knap is juiced towards the under on books, which I do not agree with at 13.5. So if you're going to take him, you take him on Underdog because he's actually, you have a multiplier towards the over. If you were to take that, average, I think is going to go down a little bit, just like the fairway average. If I had to guess what happens to that, I think it could get a little bit lower because of the fact that it's going to dry out a bit. But like 13.25 per round, a guy like Knap, I'll bring up that average real quick. If we go to the approach play and then bring up green regulation percentage, we'll bring up good old Jake. Jake Knap is number 63 on tour. So he's not elite in the category, but he is above average, which once again, to do some napkin math, this isn't a perfect science, but this is the general kind of mindset that my projection system uses. So I like to give you guys that kind of insight. But a Knap, slightly above average green player, if the average is 13.25, that means that 13.5 is probably a pretty good number. So once again, maybe slightly above that, by the way, because you have to add on the fact that he's also playing really well, not even just this week, but he's playing well the last few months. So that gives him a little bit of a boost too. So maybe like 13.75 per round. So yeah, I would see a lean towards the over, but take him on Underdog and just to double check whether that he's still at that kind of number at 13.5. Yeah, look at that, 1.06x. I'm not against that at all. In fact, if you want to throw it up on top of the other two that we took for 7.04x, I wouldn't be against that, especially on a player like him. Is it also thoughts on Knap for the over on greens? So yeah, I just brought that one up with Jonathan there. So hopefully that gives you your answer. And you're looking at Grail over 4.5 birdies. I was kind of looking at Grail myself as well. In fact, I already did the research on it, but he's like number 93 on tour in birdie percentage. Just to double check the exact number and to show the live chat. Yeah, number 95. Okay, 2 off. It's pretty close. My memory is decent. I guess not perfect. I can't expect to be perfect, I suppose. But at 4.5 birdies, he was at this number on Prize Picks. I'm not against it. I'm curious where the sports books have him at that number, though. So let me see. Let's scroll over to birdies are better. Then let's go to Miliana Grillo. So he's minus 140 towards the over. I got to say that that's even more favorable than the McCarti line. I think McCarti was only like minus 125. So it's not like a sportsbook line was why I was getting to that kind of one. But a Grillo, yeah, could be a positive stance play to even consider. In fact, he's got elite tier course history. He's played extremely well at this kind of track. And the only thing that gives me slight hesitation would be the fact that he isn't like the best putter on the PGA Tour, and making more than 4.5 birdies a lot of times comes down to, can you make your 10 to 15 footers? Now, the course history says that he can, because he's done it around this track in the past. In fact, course history, he's gone T24, T10, T2. He did miss a cut, but then went T3 in 2020. You know what? I don't think that's bad whatsoever. In fact, we're going to make that the second slip that we take. I was not taking that myself earlier. I hadn't sold myself on it quite yet. I was researching it. I was looking at it. By the way, the ball striking stats today were decent for Grillo too. So it wasn't just the putter. Actually, he lost putting by the end of the day. That's interesting. At one point of the day, he was gaining putting. That was when I was first going through the shots gained metrics. But at the end of the day, he lost. So unfortunate for him, I guess. He didn't have his best stuff towards the end. Look at that. Gained off the tee, gained 4 strokes on approach. Yeah, I like your style there, man. In fact, so much so that we're going to run it for the live stream slip. And again, that's a 3x payout if we take those two together, because of the Kurt Kitayama is a quote-unquote fade. But you're not really fading conditions when you're fading a fairway line. It's the same thing I did for round one at a few spots. Like if you're going to fade anyone at a birdie fest, you don't really want to fade strokes that often. Like we did it with Ramey because I thought the line was off, but you usually want to do it with lines like fairways that aren't as down to the course conditions. Let's see. You saw Knap minus 150 for the under. Yeah, so if you're going to take them, it's got to be on a site like Underdog where you can get that extra payout. You're looking at Svensson at 4 birdies with that push equity. I would stay away from it just because of how short game dependent he was. You know, that last 5 watcher that we had on chat probably thinks that's a lock or something because he made 10 birdies today. But keep in mind that he gained almost 6 strokes, and actually almost 7 strokes in the short game category. So that's unsustainable, not really something that you can count on. And yeah, man, just to show that guy, like look at Svensson, right? His form has been terrible, and I hate to pick on him because I love Svenny. I've been following him for quite a while. Missed cut. T44. Wow, he made a cut, but he finished outside the top 40. Cut. And then I mean, you looked at the Ramey stuff before as well. That's why they don't do it in back-to-back days, because if they did it often, they would have the finishes to show, and they don't, right? He said, do I like Champ for the under 68.5 strokes? So yeah, I took him today for the under 69.5. 68.5 is a little sketchier because if it's lift clean in place, I could get behind that kind of thing, Antonio, especially with his course history. He's somebody that at this golf course has won T12, other top 25 finishes on top of that. However, if they don't have lift clean in place and it makes a stroke difference, then that gets a lot sketchier. In fact, that might even be a value towards the over if that ends up happening. So I'm going to stay away from a lot of the strokes lines until that happens. I think if anything right now on strokes, you fade guys, right? Because if you want to take positive stance plays, the safest place to do it, in my opinion, would be like an over on birdie. So for example, I'm not sure if Cam Champ's at 4.5 and even money on books. I would assume not because he's a very aggressive, high birdie percentage player, but that would be the better spot to attack, in my opinion. You're looking at the Maverick over 11 pars. Yeah, I'm not bending any pars props, but he said, if the course plays lift clean in place, do I feel better about the pars line? Lift clean in place probably doesn't affect the pars that much. In fact, maybe it makes the pars go down a little bit, but yeah, man, I don't really have a take on that. The pars lines are way beyond me. It's kind of like the last 5 Warriors. I think if you're playing par lines, it's just a little bit too degenerate. I'd rather focus on the stuff we can get a tangible edge on. Over 13.5, if you're going to look at it, do it on Underdog. Not sure if I'm going to play it myself, but that's the place where you can get an extra payout. He said, also, last question, is LIV worth playing? Yeah, we're going to talk about some LIV stuff. I think it's worth playing, especially for rounds 2 and 3. We don't have the stat averages quite yet. We did play this course last year, so I'm going to give you guys a baseline, but they changed up the golf course quite a bit since 2024. So I think it could play a little bit different this year. We'll talk about that here in a second, though. He said, Kurt hit 12 fairways today. Scary to fade tomorrow. Yeah, no, man. That's the last 5 Warriors. That's the exact kind of opposite mindset that you want, man. 1 round means absolutely dog shit to me. It literally means nothing. In fact, a lot of times that's what the sports books count on, right? Is the public going, oh, we hit 12 today. He's obviously going to hit like 10 tomorrow. Not necessarily the case, man. People have good days. People have shitty days. I was kind of showing you that with Svensson. He shot 60, best round by far in the round. And he's missed 5 of his last 6 events at the cut. He hasn't even played the weekend. And you're telling me that he's the guy who had the best round of the day? That's how variant that golf is. So the one thing that you guys can take away from this live stream, we go through exposure. I give you guys some bets for any given round. That's part of it. But I want to make you guys better bettors of golf. And that kind of mindset where like you're looking at the guy's performance from one day and using it for the next, maybe it's a good cherry on top. Like the last thing you look at is like, oh, what did he do today? And it's like, oh, he would have covered this line around 1. Great. It should be quite literally be the last thing that you look at, because 1 round compared to the hundreds of rounds that we use for like the stats over the year, the 1 round means nothing again compared to that other stuff. So that would be what I would say about that. He said, W, glad that I could help my decision with Grillo. Yeah, man, I was 50-50 on it. But when I saw the stats, I thought he was better putting than what he was. That was really the X factor for me, is I thought he had gained like a stroke and a half putting, and he lost strokes putting. So that was, your little kick in the behind also helped as well. You're looking at Graziman under birdie matchups against Smalley. He said he saw Smalley 17 on tour and then Graziman's 36. Yeah, I do love the unders on birdie or better matchups. And you're right, Smalley's the favorite, right? And he's getting that extra 0.5. To play devil's advocate, I would say that is value towards the under, especially like the extra 0.5. Like undoubtedly, raw metrics don't lie. The only, however, I'll give, it's because I like Grazerman this week, is I bet him outright for a reason here. He finished in 2nd at this event last year. He seems to love the grass. He seems to love this golf course and the small sample size that we've seen. That would be the only thing holding me back from it. And the fact that Smalley was very sketchy today. But numbers-wise, projection-wise, you're 100% right, so I can't argue with that. It is 100% value towards the under. You said, you've learned from me that positive putting usually means a fade the next round. Exactly, and you said it works well for you. Yeah, I use it in DFS too. It's not even just for props, but I use it in the fantasy side. Short game is very hard to back up. So yeah, the Svenssons, the Ramies that went super low, that's why they don't do it every single round. He said Burns and Maverick pissed themselves as the betting favorites. He said, you think you go low at the early tee time? I think one of the two probably goes low. I don't know if both of them are going to, because, going from even par to -6 batshit low isn't an easy thing to just turn around overnight. But Burns, high upside player, Maverick, some of the best form of anyone in the field. I'm personally playing Burns in quite a few lineups. I'm taking that shot in DFS. I hope it's him. But yeah, if both of them went low, I guess it wouldn't like blow my mind or anything. He said, okay. He said, the pars have usually been solid for you. Yeah, I guess if you have some guys that you like, or you found a process that's good for the pars, then by all means. But yeah, I don't put that much time into it, man. It feels like there's some variance there. And I've been doing the prop bets for like 5 years. Pars only came around over the last like 3-4 months. So that's probably why I'm a little bit hesitant on those. But let's talk through some of those live golf stuff. So it's a par 71 on the live golf side. And the scoring average last year was about 70 strokes. Birdie average was about 4 per round. So if you can do some napkin math, right, it's about 3 bogeys or worse per round. But they made some changes to the course. And I'm actually going to bring that up for you. It's not a ton of information, but they tried to go through a little bit on it. Let me see if I can find the article on it. It's probably going to be tough to see, but we'll see what we can do. Let's see. Is it the first look? Oh, here it is. This is the article I was looking for. So he said, we did listen. I guess that's not what we're looking for. Here we go. So this is a quote from Sam Horsfield. Horsfield's a player on Live, and he's also a member at this golf course. So he would be by far the person to ask on this kind of change. He said, they added some new tee boxes to make it a little bit longer and a little bit more challenging. They made some great changes. They took all the feedback that us players told them and obviously did something with it, which is awesome to see from a player side. Slightly butchered that reading, but I think you guys get the point. They made the golf course a little longer, and it seems like the players were complaining about it being a little bit easy. You can read the rest of the article if you guys would like. It's on the Live Golf site. I showed you guys how to find it, but he goes into a little bit more detail on some of the changes, and it seems like they were all almost to make it harder. So if the scoring average, to go back to this board, right, was 70 strokes, and that was last year. Wind, by the way, to go to that, we have the JCB Golf and Country Club. That's the golf course that they're playing. It looks like there's going to be some wind, right? 10 miles an hour wind tomorrow, into the 15, 20 mile an hour range with those wind gusts. So non-existent wind. I think the scoring average might even be higher than the 70 strokes from last year. How the hell is everyone at 70 strokes or lower? Like, they have the whole board here, right? It's not just the elite tier guys that we have here for Live Golf. You've also got scrubs at 70 strokes. So like, for example, a Matthew Wolff who hasn't played in 3 months, he's at 70. Like, you'd have to think that he's going to be rusty in his first event back. Guys like Thomas Peters have not been world beaters, and he's 1 stroke better than the average. Like, that feels a little bit too positive. There's a lot of projections across the board, in particular for strokes. Again, we don't have the averages from this year after the changes, so we have to be a little bit hesitant about going too hard on this board. But my first assumption, based on what we've seen, is that it's too positive of lines, especially if those course changes were intended to make it more difficult. And if we go to the birdie or better board, they've got everyone at 4.5 or higher. The average was like 4 per round last year. So if, again, it's going to be a slightly harder affair, how do they have everyone at least 4.5 birdies? Now, their selection for it was pretty decent. They didn't post a whole lot of scrubs for the 4.5 lines, but with strokes, they have guys that are mid to lower tier Live guys at a half a stroke to a stroke better than the field average. So you're probably going to see me fade a couple people. I already mentioned that Matthew Wolff one, but like, there are some other scrubs that like Peters, other guys like Charles Schwartzel at 69.5 that I'm going to be line shopping for some of that value. So I'm going to have to see what I end up entering it with a little bit later on. I was actually thinking we were going to enter it with Kurt Kitayama, but yeah, ended up taking that Rio prop instead. So we'll have to add some Live Golf stuff a little bit later on for my Patreon members. But what we're going to do next is we're going to go through these matchups. So let me go ahead and switch over to that tab, and we'll go through a few matchups I've already entered. So it's Tony Finau. We're just going to add him to the shopping cart and then talk about him after. It's Tony Finau, it's Adam Scott, and it's Max Homa. So it's those 3. And the numbers that I got are going to be a little bit better than what you can get on DraftKings. But do your line shopping, right? Check if FanDuel has a slightly better line on these 3 players. But I'll go through what I got. So I got Tony Finau at plus 210. You can see he's plus 175 on DraftKings, which at more than plus 200 odds, right? That's less than like a default matchup between 3 players, right? Default winning percentage is about 33%. The plus 210 that I'm getting on Finau, and I got on Hard Rock Bet, is blasphemous in this kind of matchup. He's going against Pendrith, Fowler. You'd say that Finau is probably the same talent level, if not better, than one, if not both of those other players. And Finau has the elite of all the elite course history. He's got a win, multiple top threes, multiple top fives, just all the kind of finishes that you could ask for around TPC Twin Cities. So again, over that plus 200 mark, which is the marker for like a neutral matchup, I'll take Tony Finau all day. Now, plus 175, it is a little bit more fair in my opinion, but you guys always ask for the exposure I'm entering. So, you know, some of you don't care about the numbers as much because you're just trying to enter it for fun. I guess if that's the case, you could enter the plus 175, but ideally plus 185 or better is what I'd be looking for on that sort of mark. Next up, we have Adam Scott, who I got at plus 230. So once again, a slightly better number, which is well above the plus 200 mark. So now you're talking about somebody that's way better odds than the neutral matchup. And Goddard played really well. He's played really well heading in. I think the jet lag, some people expect it to happen round one, but sometimes it can happen round two. You know, you play a whole round of golf, practice round the day before, it starts to really catch up with you. If it's going to happen and he stumbles, him stumbling might even be like a -2, -3 round. Then Scott has a fighting chance against Wyndham Clark. And Wyndham Clark, he's also been a player that's been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde lately, been really high, really low the next day, had a pretty solid round number one. Give me Adam Scott, who, if we take a look at the shots gained metrics, did it in a very solid fashion. He gained off the tee, he gained 0.7 strokes on approach, and he lost about 2.4 in the short game category. So give me him to have a little bit of that short game regression, improve in that category. And then lastly, it was Max Homa versus McNeely in Thigala. Now, you can't completely ignore Thigala, but he looks like he's injured. He's really struggling, so I'm kind of ignoring him in this matchup. And then you're telling me it's pretty much like plus 175 versus Mav, which, by the way, I got this at plus 210 as well. That's the same odds I got on Finau. So just like him, you probably want at least plus 185, right? Just knowing that that plus 210 is out there, it makes it kind of tough to want to play something at like plus 175. But Homa looked like he was back today. He hit all 18 greens of regulation. He's going against a struggling Thigala and McNeely, who struggled today as well. Now, do I expect McNeely to turn it around? Yeah, like I think he's probably shooting -3, -4 tomorrow. Like it wouldn't surprise me, especially if it's lift clean in place. But Homa played better, and he's, again, plus 210 for the Hard Rock bet. I thought that that was quite a bit of a mistake. So that's why I took those three, ended up getting slightly better odds on the sportsbook that I have available. But if you line shop it, you look at Bet365, maybe FanDuel has a slightly better number on these sort of bets. You might be able to join me on some of that exposure. But that's all I've got, guys, for the round two live stream. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. It is getting late on the East Coast. Unfortunately, these Central Time Zone or Western Time Zone events do push the content a little bit later on to the evening, which makes it harder to do, right? I won't lie, the human component, you get a little bit more tired when you have these live streams later, but always still want to be able to touch on all that content for you guys. So hopefully I was able to give you guys all the information that you guys were looking for in round number two. For all the rest of the bets I'm entering, including any other three balls I enter, Underdog and Prize Pick slips, including any live golf stuff I end up entering, make sure to check out the Patreon page for that. But that's all I've got for the next day. I'm going to catch up on any last second questions. So if you've got any bets that I wasn't able to touch on quite yet, hit me up in chat right now, because this is your last second chance to get those in. Let's see. So you said you like fading Lahiri, Grace, and Herbert for the over on strokes. Yeah, I could see that too, man. I know Herbert played well here last year, so the line, though, is crazy. 68.5. He'd have to shoot -3 to go under that. 2 shots gained to the field is asking a lot there. So I'm with you on that one, even though I like the course fit a little bit. Lahiri, too, course fit kind of makes sense, but isn't he at 69.5, or is he 68.5 as well? Let's see, where's Lahiri? He's 68.5 too. Yeah, man. I mean, those, just the line's off on those. Shooting -3 is not going to be easy. And then Grace, same thing. I know Grace has played a little bit better over the last few weeks, but what is he at, 69 strokes? Let me double check on Grace. Yeah, so 69.5 actually on that one. Yeah, especially those 68.5, man. Like the Lahiris, the Herberts of the world. Just feels a little bit too positive. You're looking at Schmidt under fairways. I could get behind that one as well. Like if we go to the stat averages, go to off the tee and driving accuracy, I know that he's worse than average, but I'm going to see just how terrible he is. Number 144 in the category. Yeah, just like Kurt Kitayama, I like that a lot. In fact, I may enter that myself. Does Burns and Maverick have better value on their strokes, birdies, or made cuts? So I guess it depends, right? And like over, under, what you're talking about. If you're just talking, let me just bring them up and take a look at it for a second. I'm not really sure what you're asking, to be honest, but I'll do my best. 0.8x for the over on 4.5 birdies. Kind of makes it, I was looking at the wrong player. Let's go to Sam Burns. He's at 5.5 and 1.1x. I don't know if I can do it, man. Like making 6 birdies is asking a lot, even from like a John Rahm. a Scotty Scheffler, a Rory McIlroy type player, but especially for somebody like a Sam Burns. So if you're talking about the over at 5.5 birdies on either player, even with the multiplier, it's just, in my opinion, maybe asking a little bit too much. Like if it was a 1.3x multiplier, they were really juicing it up. Like maybe I could get behind it, but this 1.13x, it's a nice change, but maybe not a big enough change in my opinion with that sort of slip. And then the strokes lines, I believe they're both at the same kind of thing here, right? Where they're slightly juiced towards the over, like 67.5. That comes down to the lift, clean, and place. That's why I'm staying away from a lot of these strokes lines at the moment. Outside of that Ramey fade that we took, which might actually get better if they take away lift, clean, and place, is that if you're going to take a positive stance play, I need to know whether they have the ball in hand, right? And if they do have the ball in hand, I could co-sign that. Like, especially like a Burns, who I think is probably going to go low tomorrow. Like, I bet him for some fantasy lineups. I like him in general. He's played really well this year. His approach play is finally coming around. He plays well at Birdie Fest. If we have lift, clean, and place, I could see that. But I'm not going to do it until I have that info. It's just too big of an X factor. You're looking at the McCarti 3-ball. Let me see what we have for odds. I have the bet in already on his birdie, so I don't know. I don't like doubling up too much. But he's going against Hughes and Davis. He's the favorite. Hey, that shows you the kind of respect that he's getting, right? But I honestly don't even know if he should be the favorite in that group. Like I like him. He's the three-time Korn Ferry Tour winner. He won this year already on the PGA Tour, but that's a lot of respect to have him as the favorite over Hughes and Davis there. So yeah, I probably wouldn't enter that, man. I like the 4.5 number that we got. It just, hey, it makes me feel better about the other stuff we took. That's for sure. He said, I appreciate the hard work. He said, thank you for pumping out quality content. Thank you for the kind words, man. And let's have ourselves around number 2. And yeah, the plus 150 is better than the plus 140 that you can see there. But even then, man, I'm not sure if he should be the favorite. He said, who are some of my favorites as outright long shots? Ooh, I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. So I'm not going to be able to give you my full thoughts, my full gathered thoughts like we have for a lot of the other stuff here. Long shot outrights. Yeah, I mean, without having the leaderboard up in front of me, like I know Pearson Cootie's gotten off to a hot start and I bet him this week. So like, maybe him, maybe a Max Homa after his -5 start. You're probably living in this like 40 to 50 to 1 range. I haven't given it enough thought though to really give you my 2 cents there. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, not the kind of answer I wanted to give you, to be honest. You said for a positive stance play on those guys. Yeah, so I figured that's what you were talking about. So it's good to see that confirmation. The only thing I'll say, Jonathan, is that it better be lift, clean, and place for those. It's just, if not, they should be 0.5 to 1 stroke higher, which it tells you what I think about it then, right? They're probably fade value if they don't have that lift, clean, in place. If not, I could see it though. Looking at a Troy Merritt 3-ball. Oh boy, haven't seen that name in a while at plus 200. Well, who the heck is he going against? Because that feels very positive on Troy Merritt. He has not played very good golf at all over the last year or so. He's going against Bramlett and Palmer. So it's partially because of the Palmer thing. Palmer's been playing even worse than Troy Merritt. And then Bramlett, he's been a little bit better, but plus 100 is crazy. I'm not as bold as you. I don't have the massive nutsack that needs a wheelbarrow to be taken around like you, but like I can see it. I don't know if I'm going to enter it myself. I don't know if I have the nutsack for it, but golly. Yeah, if you're going to enter anyone there, it's definitely not Bramlett at even money. That's crazy. It's the biggest fish play I've ever seen in my life. Even if he wins, like good for you. You got your money back. But yeah, man, that plus 200 would be the only thing to bet there. Right? You're not going to take a shot on Palmer with his history. Not his history, sorry, his form. His form's, he's losing strokes every week. He's missing every cut essentially at this stage of the year. Boy, oh boy, that is a nasty one though. He said, any thoughts for the 1.5 bogeys on Underdog? So the 1.5 bogey lines, a lot of that does come down to the lift, clean, in place as well. But without lift, clean, in place, this is what I'll say about the bogey lines, is that there would be value towards the over, because the average today was about 2.08. Without lift, clean, in place, it'll probably be at least 2.5, maybe even 2.6, 2.7 per round. They've got guys on there at 2.5 bogeys and juiced way towards the under that I think you could take overs on. So yeah, the 1.5 lines, by the way, what I don't like about those clutch is that the multipliers on them are terrible, right? It's like heavily juiced towards the under if you took that, which I guess is nice, but I wouldn't do that without knowing the lift, clean, and play situation. And then on the flip side, if you're going to take their overs, right, assuming that it might play a little bit harder, it's like 0.7x or something like that. So it's probably a stay away spot for me. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck with all the exposure that you guys are getting to, and see you guys for all the content throughout the rest of the weekend.